Do you like surprising your party? How about your DM? Well, you're in luck. Because behind today's secret door, the Archfey Pact of the Chain Quickspin. So behind today's secret door, the Archfey Pact of the Chain Quickspin. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussions about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. So a Quickspin is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mini test drive. This is going to cover levels 1 through level 6, and before you watch this video, if you haven't seen it already, please check out the video Pact of the Chain Familiars and what to do with them, and the link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. So I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, the link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. At the highest tier, I'm offering it's very hard to describe it quickly, but I'll do my best, a play-by-message, play-by-email, however you want to phrase it, campaign. It'll be a persistent campaign where you'll be able to kind of take a character concept on a test drive of your own. So you'll answer a questionnaire of what your character would do in certain situations and then go on a monthly adventure of your choice. That's going to be like a one-shot, and I will roll everything out, give an action report, and you'll be able to see how your character did, round by round, how everything performed, you and your party. Then afterwards, on the Discord, you can tell everybody what happened. So you'll be able to interpret how everything worked exactly. You'll take the action report and give your version of how it's your chance to give flavor and life. So I'm trying to do my best to give you a thought experiment as well as a little bit of role playing thrown in as a thank you for supporting the channel. So with this video, I'm only going to cover levels 1 through 6, and it's really about a mechanic more than a normal test drive per se. There's not a lot to recommend the Archfey other than this mechanic, in my opinion. Other than, of course, if you have a character concept. In that case, mechanics don't really matter all that much if your character concept screams that it has to be Archfey. But this is really going to be all about the mechanics, specifically the mechanic of sleep. I initially had this idea for another class, but it occurs to me that in some ways this may serve it better, and because sleep is on the Archfey's patron spell list at first level, I thought, well, why not do it now? So here we go. Okay, so for the race, I'm going to suggest taking custom lineage, putting the +2, of course, into charisma, and then what feat you would pick doesn't really matter too much for the sake of this test drive. For the sake of this test drive, I'm going to take alert. And there's specific reasons for that. I want the option of when to go. So if I go earlier, as you'll see, you're going to be taking the ready action a lot. So I want to be able to look at the battlefield and see when I want to go exactly. And in the first few levels, alert is going to serve you very well with sleep, and you'll win encounters easily, as you'll see. But that being said, you could easily, if this interests you, you could easily go with one of the good half feats. I would not take telekinetic, even though I want to take telekinetic, because the bonus action, we're not going to really use hex in this portion of the test, of the Quickspin. I almost said test drive, of the Quickspin. So it's not an interaction problem with that. It's going to deal with something else. So I want to save that opening bonus action, but you could use telekinetic, understanding that your first bonus action of every turn is going to be accounted for. I would otherwise recommend telepathic. You could take Fey Touched, and if you did take Fey Touched, I would take Hex with it. to save you a spell's known. And where we stop is where the Archfey would want to start thinking about incorporating Hex and not using sleep as much, or being as sleep dependent, if you'll pardon that expression. So first level, we get 1 spell slot. That stinks, except that for the patron spells, we get the choice between Fairy Fire and we get Sleep. And Sleep is what we're here for. So, of course, we're taking Sleep. I really like Fairy Fire, but, that's up to you if you want to take it. You might want to use it at later levels. It could dovetail nicely with Sleep in some respects to get damage out on the party. There's a combo there, possibility. But right now, I'm really just worried about Sleep. So because we have Sleep, and let's just talk about Sleep for a second, because it is probably the most important thing, and it is the most important thing in this test drive. So Sleep at first level rolls 5d8, and that's how many hit points in a pool that it can affect. It goes lowest up and it's important to remember that it deals with their current hit points, not their hit point total. So 5d8 worth of hit points, low ones go to Sleep first. But here's the big part, is that Sleep has no save. And that's what's so exciting about it. And this combination of mechanisms that we're going to use is going to expand the level of Sleep's effectiveness. Sleep as a spell rules D&D easily at levels 1 and 2, pretty much at level 3. Level 4, it begins to become a bit dicey if it'll work or not with the total hit points. We're talking about a first level casting. And pretty much it phases out. Certainly by level 5, it's out. Level 4 is even questionable. But you're a Warlock, and your Sleep is outcast automatically. So at level 3, at third level character level, you're going to be rolling 7 dice. At 5th level, 9 dice. At 7th level, 11 dice. And at 9th level, 13 dice. That's the big appeal, is to be able to take out opponents and there's nothing that they can do about it. If the opponent has magic resistance that either halves the damage or gives them advantage on saving throws, great. Doesn't work against Sleep. It's amazingly powerful. That no save is why we're here, and that's why I've worked so hard to figure out a way to make it last as long as I possibly could. So at first level, even though you only have the 1 spell slot, all your spell slots, by the way, in this Quickspin, I'm assuming that you're going to use Sleep for. So I'm not worried about Hex or anything else. So at first level, you only have the 1 spell slot, and that does stink. But you have Alert, and that paired with Sleep at first level will pretty much auto-win that encounter that you cast it. When you take a short rest, you've got another one. If your DM is nice and you can get 2 short rests in a day at first level, then you're going to pretty much nuke 3 encounters. It trivializes encounters. And so your character at first level, even though you're damaged, and I'm not really going to worry about damage calculations, your damage is going to be bad. You're going to play from levels 1 through 4. You're going to play like the most powerful character in the group. If you have a wizard in the group who also is using Sleep, you'll quickly outpace that wizard in how effective your Sleep spell will be versus theirs. So you're going to feel great from levels 1 through 4. So the first level patron ability, Fey Presence, is famously bad. You can charm or fear targets in a 10 feet cube emanating from you. They fail their save. It's an uh-oh button. You could use it aggressively, I suppose. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to get myself out of a good position to go be in the position to use it. I would want to use it if things went badly, and then I don't even know if I would use it. I think I would rather just disengage. But you could use it. There are situations where you could make use of it, but it's a famously bad ability. And at level 2, we get, of course, the first big boost. We get 2 spell slots. That's a big deal. And we get invocations. That's a big deal. In our case, though, the invocations aren't quite as glorious as they otherwise would be. I'm going to assume that you're going to use Eldritch Blast. The 2 spell slots is the big deal here. Now we have, with 1 short rest, you have 4 casting of sleep a day. That's fantastic. So I'm going to assume that you're going to use Eldritch Blast. At levels 1 and 2, these combats are going to be over so fast that you may not even get to a round 2, depending on where you are in the initiative order. But I would probably take Repelling Blast and go ahead and take Agonizing Blast if you want. It doesn't really matter. We're going to have to trade that one out in a level anyway. So pick whichever one you want. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this test drive. Quickspin. And at level 3, of course, we get the Pact boon. And of course, we're going Pact of the Chain, and we're going with the Imp. And we're going to trade out one of the invocations, whichever one. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this. And we're going to take Investment of the Chainmaster. Now, those of you that have seen the Genie video and what have you, I famously am skeptical about the use of Investment of the Chainmaster. But because this is only going to level 6, and because it will pair very nicely with sleep, this is the way to go for a character like this. The patron spells are Calm Emotions or Phantasmal Force. Calm Emotions does have some real value outside of combat, in my opinion. I don't like its effects in combat, and yes, I'm aware that it can remove the fear condition, etc., but that doesn't really terribly interest me. But outside of combat, if things are going badly in a situation, you could stop a bad situation from getting worse right then and there. But you are having to show your hand by casting. So it's very, very tricky. It's not like the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer who could just do it. But all that being considered, I might consider taking it. But I would certainly take Invisibility. But because we have second level spells available to us, now sleep has jumped to 7d8. So sleep was averaging 22 hit points on average at first and second levels. It's now averaging 31 hit points affected at third level as a second level spell. So in combat now, with the Imp in hand, the Imp is rolling its own initiative. You have Alert, so you're going to be going high in the order most of the time. The Imp has a relatively decent bonus to initiative, so it's going to be going relatively highly most of the time, or at least mid most of the time. Why I want you to be going early is obviously at first and second level, you are just nuking encounters before they start. At third level now, you'll start having the option. So a lot of what is involved with this process is your ability to assess the opponent and how strong they likely are. I'm not asking you to memorize the monster manual. There's plenty of good role-playing reasons to not do that. Some players do, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but some players don't like doing that. So either way, it doesn't matter, but maybe by experience or whatever, you'll have an idea of how to eyeball how tough an opponent is. It's going to be impossible for me to go through every opponent, everything in all the different monster manuals, and tell you exactly who's going to be vulnerable and who isn't. You're just going to have to know you've got 31 hit points on average to work with. Does it look like that will take this one out? At levels 1 and 2, you were probably affecting several potential targets. From here on forward, you're going to have rounds where you're going to be able to affect a couple, but from here on out, you might have to be content with just one, depending on the composition of the enemy group. So ideally, this is how combat will go for you. You're going to assess the situation. If you feel you need the Imp for sleep to work, then what you will do is you'll use your bonus action, which will allow the Imp to attack on its turn. The Imp, and then you will take the ready action, You will be readying sleep. You will set the condition. This is if you only need the imp. You'll set the condition for after the imp attacks. When the imp does attack, then you cast sleep. The imp will be attacking with advantage in that situation. And because it's still in the curve, it gets a +5 to hit. It'll have about an 85% chance on average to hit. So it's very likely that it'll hit. The resulting damage from the imp should lower the hit points sufficiently at 3rd level that the opponent should drop from your follow-up with sleep. It may even hit 2 targets. Now, here is the critical thing in this, and in everything I'm going to be talking about here. There's a lot of moving parts with this. By doing this delay, sleep is area of effect. So you're going to have to be very careful that the imp, even though it just attacked, is not in that area of effect. So you're going to have to play the edges very, very well. There are going to be times where this is just not going to be feasible based on the map considerations. In general, this is not that difficult to figure out, pushing an area of effect so that it's clipping the edge. That's not all that hard. So if the map is playing with you, and it most likely will, then make sure that the imp is not in the area of effect. Just for the sake of completion here, I only am interested in having the imp attack to lower the HP threshold so that sleep will work. I don't think it's a good idea to just leave the imp as an active combatant if the battle should be going on much longer. So in round 2, I would have the imp definitely recover with invisibility. You really don't want to have to waste the time to have to resummon the imp if it dies. The imp's damage on average with advantage, when you figure out the average from saving throws and et cetera, comes out to like 11.3 points of damage on average. But you're not terribly interested in the averages, truth be told, because we're only talking about one roll. So realistically, your minimum, if the imp hits, is 10 points. Hits and the target makes their saving throw. This is assuming average damage actually rolled. So your basic minimum on average with a hit is 10, and it can jump to about 16 on average if they fail their save. So you have at least, on average, an extra 10 points to work with. So sleep was doing 31. Now you've got an extra 10 points at least to work with if it hits and if it rolls average, et cetera, et cetera. And it could be 16. I keep wanting to point the things that could go wrong with this out, because things could go wrong. This is not like some perfect plan that's always going to work every single time the way I describe it. The way I describe it, I think it will generally work out this way. But there's a lot of moving parts and things could go wrong, and you just need to be prepared for that. Part of the problem that the sleep spell is also going to have as you play with it is that there's going to be a frustration point. There's 2 that I see. One is that it doesn't work, that you either the imp missed in this case and the target simply had more hit points than what you were able to roll. Because by taking the ready action, you're committed to casting the spell. You don't have to cast it, but you'll lose the spell slot. So you might as well and see if you roll well or whatever. So there's the frustration of failure. There's that. And then there's the frustration that as you do these ready actions, the deeper in the round you go and damage is hitting, that there may be a waste, that you had a lot of hit points left over, but it can't roll over to the next guy. Don't worry about that. Worry about looking at your targets and saying, did I get rid of that target and that target, or just that one target, or whatever the situation calls for? Did you succeed? Then if so, be happy. Don't get greedy. You're going to be plenty powerful. Levels 1 and 2, levels 3 are going to be great. Levels 4 and 5 and 6 will get there when we get there. Just as a quick side note with the imp, I'm assuming that you're always keeping the imp invisible. I know I would. why on earth would you have it ever be visible? So because it can be invisible all the time, I'm assuming that it's invisible all the time. So I'm always assuming that this first attack is coming with advantage because it's attacking out of invisibility. So level 4, we get the ASI, and with the ASI, you just kind of take your choice of the menu that I gave you before. Because I took alert in this case, I would probably take Fey Touched and take Hex in preparation for the days when we're going to start needing to worry about doing damage ourselves. But Telepathic would be a very great choice. And just to point out what telekinetic's theoretical use could be, I've talked about the area of effect problems you're going to have. So the idea to be able to shove things in and out of that is going to be useful because they can voluntarily fail their saving throw. That's going to be useful. We're assuming shoving allies out of the way. But by the time you get the imp, you're going to probably need the imp to attack, and you took the invocation for it. So that first round bonus action, when you would want to be using sleep anyway, is already accounted for. It could still have uses in combat, but its best use, sadly, doesn't work very well with what we're dealing with here. So I would probably recommend Telepathic or Fey Touched. I'm going to assume we're taking Fey Touched with Hex. This puts the Charisma at 18 at this point, which is great, but again, we're not worried about DCs and we're not really worried about personal damage. Okay, level 5. Level 5 is famously a great big level for everybody. A little less so for you. You do get 2 Eldritch Blasts, et cetera, et cetera. But the big deal here is, of course, that we get 3rd level spells, and that upgrades sleep yet again. So we're now dealing with 9d8. At 9d8, now we're dealing with 40 hit points that will be affected. The patron spells here at 3rd level are Blink and Plant Growth. I'm going to suggest that you take Hypnotic Pattern and Counterspell. Hypnotic Pattern is going to be, from here on forward, you're going to have to start making some hard decisions between whether it's better to use sleep or to use Hypnotic Pattern. If you are flexible, then, and you don't force feed the sleep thing, but rather take it when it's there for you, then I think all this works out rather swimmingly. So at 5th level, the enemies now are getting so beefy that the imp alone, and this actually could be very well true at level 4, but we'll discuss it here at level 5. The imp alone, the imp's damage alone, and the upgrade in hit points that you're affecting with sleep are not going to be sufficient a lot of the time. They will be sometimes, because you're getting 40 hit points on average. The imp is doing, again, say a minimum of 10. Just count on 10. Now you're looking at 50. Now there's plenty of opponents that you're going to deal with at 5th level that 50 hit points will affect, but there are going to be plenty that it doesn't affect. So the ready action now goes beyond the imp. It goes to the first available. Now, this is assuming, of course, that it all plays out swimmingly, that the imp is going right after you or relatively in the order after you. There could always be players involved in this process all along, but I'm saying this specifically for your plan. So instead of triggering it specifically on the imp, you might trigger it on an ally that goes after the imp in the initiative order, so that you're getting their damage as well as the imp's damage thrown in. And of course, this might turn out that you're getting a couple of player characters participating in this. That's kind of the other thing I like about the sleep situation as this progresses, is that it really becomes a teamwork spell. So everybody is participating in this, as opposed to you just grabbing all the glory for yourself. Everybody is making this happen. And that's what's cool. So a player character at 5th level that does average damage does about 17 points of damage on average. Now, the way that works out is because the average is, of course, accounting for misses. If they hit, which is all you're really worried about, is if they hit, then you're talking about 25, 26 points of damage. So that, coupled with what the imp can do, and that your sleep spell is now doing 40, means that you could be dealing with something in the 80s in terms of total hit points. And that does cover quite a few opponents at 5th level. To verify I wasn't just relying on my own experience on all this, I went into Xanathar's and I went to the random encounter table for in the forest. I picked forest because it's probably the most generally representative of the kind of opponents that you're going to be dealing with at 5th level. And I went through everything one by one and checked through the monster manual. I don't use D&D Beyond, so I did all this by hand. So I checked all the hit point totals as we went along. So there are 57 entries on that table. And I might have missed one, but it about 57 that are combatants. There's a few that are just random nothings. So 57, and out of that 57, there were roughly 15 where I would say you definitely would have to go into the party, meaning that you would have to ready to a party member for sure to get this to work. Of that 15, I would say half of them you would have to ready to the party. The other half, realistically, you might have to think of them as sleep not as an opening round maneuver, but rather as a follow-up second round closer. And it's just as viable in that way. Closing a combat quickly, one way or the other, I mean, one round of combat's not all that bad. But now we get into the real question, right? So is it better to use a second round closer in sleep that could be mathematically certain to drop them? Or is it better to use hypnotic pattern and hope they miss their save? So they both are equally have their advantages. For the sake of this argument, I'm just going to talk about what you can do with sleep because hypnotic pattern is rather obvious. But you have that option. So I'm not expecting you that this is always just going to go swimmingly. There's going to be times where you just don't know. And probably in that case, well, definitely in that case, if you don't know, then cast hypnotic pattern. You know what that can do. And if they fail their save, they fail. It's never a dumb thing to cast hypnotic pattern. It's a great spell, one of the best control spells in the game. The advantage for striving for sleep at this level, I mean, so why bother if I've got a hypnotic pattern, is that sleep is certain, provided, of course, that their hit points are low enough. And you don't have another spell that's going to do direct damage without a saving throw that is going to do 40 hit points. You just don't. So it still has a lot going for it. It can still be very effective. And there's one other aspect of sleep, of course, and that is that it doesn't kill the target. So you have the option to capture them. And that's a great option to have. Sure, most of the time you're probably going to kill the target, but you have the option to capture them for whatever reason, questioning, whatever. You have that option, and that's a great option to have. Now, getting back to that forest table, I recognize, and it's very important to note here, that every DM is going to be different, and that table is by no means the end-all be-all of what could be thrown at you. Of course, it could be anything. What I found enlightening about that table was, before I looked into the monster manual, and I don't have the monster manual memorized, but as I looked at what it was, I asked myself, will sleep work or not? And then I checked, and I was right. Almost over 90% of the time, I was right. A couple of times I was surprised at the hit point totals. But what that told me, now I have a lot of experience, but a lot of you have a lot of experience. But if you don't, it's still, I think, kind of obvious the ones that are going to give you some trouble and the ones that aren't. The ones that are the real big troublemakers, if you're interested, are all at the last 15 entries, or the last 10 or so entries in the Xanathar's Guide table there, levels 5 through 10. And that's the other important thing to note here, is that that table is accounting for levels 5 through 10. So we're talking about 5th level here. So are you going to get some of those things that could challenge a 10th level party? But I'm taking it as a baseline. So I don't take it as the end all be all. Some DMs are going to throw much rougher encounters at you, and you're just going to have to, in that case, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and adapt it. But the important idea here is this mechanic of how to view sleep in using the ready action as opposed to the cast action, and how that can pair with Pact of the Chain. So at level 6, you get Misty Escape. And Misty Escape is a great power. It's the one great power that you get from the Archfey, which is one of the reasons I wanted to take it to level 6. Misty Escape is a very nice uh-oh button. It is going to allow you to get out of a jam when things go south. Things will go south every now and again. So when those things happen, you have something that's going to get you out of that jam, and it's going to get you well out of that jam. Okay, so that's the level 6 ability. We're going to be stopping here at level 6, but I just want to kind of make a final summation of what I think. I think because that forest encounter shows levels 5 through 10, and I know full well that DMs, especially DMs that are going to have to be dealing with the fact that you are up to level 5, we're just nuking encounters, and still at level 5 and level 6 now, you're showing that you can still give them trouble with sleep. I'm guessing that they're going to start beefing encounters up just enough that sleep is going to start becoming pretty unviable. But if I were just looking at the table, this theoretically will take you easily through level 10, because at level 7, you're going to get another upgrade to sleep, and at level 9, you're going to get another upgrade to sleep. So it'll be doing 11d8 and then 13d8, which is where it caps out. But this is also the point where I would think strongly that you may have gotten enough out of the Archfey already. I think I've squeezed as much out of this really villainized patron as I can. So if I were to be playing the Archfey, and this is the point I made in the opening teaser about surprise, you will surprise everybody. No one's going to think that you're going to be doing anything. But with this combination and the use of these techniques, I can accurately say that sleep will work through these levels, provided that you're not being thrown just a mega encounter from the DM. That's always going to be possible, and then sleep's just off the table, unless you're going to use it as a closer. That's the problem that sleep really has as a wrap, is that because it doesn't work like it does at level 1 and 2, then it's no good. It doesn't work anymore. Well, hit points change, so you just have to rethink about how you're going to use it, if you still want to use it. So as a closer, I think if you can close a combat in round 2, it's still worth using sleep. But there's going to be plenty of combats that are going to start going deeper and deeper into out from level 6 forward. I think you're still good on level 6. Level 7, I think we start getting into more. The DM is just going to start throwing more and more at you, is my guess. I think 6 levels is pretty good for the Archfey, though. Yeah. All right, that's all I've got. If you like the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. If you would like to support the channel, please check out the Patreon. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.